I often criticize feminism to women and gauge their reactions. And too many times to count, I have heard, "You aren't a feminist? You don't want equality for men and women? What is wrong with you? Feminism gave you everything that you have." First of all, feminism didn't give me everything that I have. The patriarchy did that. The patriarchy is the reason that I have a tiny computer in my pocket that contains all of the information on Earth. It's the reason that I won't die from consumption. And it's the reason that women have been given so many freedoms, which they've used to demonize the patriarchy and strip men of their masculinity. But regarding feminism being about equality, this is also a stupid argument because it's really easily provable that feminists don't actually want true equality. They want superior treatment. And my favorite example of this is women in the military. Women have demanded to be treated as equals and to serve at every post. Subsequently, the inevitable talks of drafting women began, which was going to be the obvious next step. And feminists reacted totally predictably to this and freaked out, shit their pants, thereby exposing so perfectly this myth of feminist equality. Women are largely liabilities in military service. They physically can't carry a wounded comrade to safety, and a man's protective instinct kicks in, meaning that many soldiers probably will take additional risks to rescue injured women that they otherwise wouldn't and probably should not have taken. We can't have that. We can't have that. Soldiers need to be focused, and compensating for women's physical weakness and emotional nature will only distract men and certainly weaken our armed forces. Feminist rejection of this draft proposition should force them to admit a few things. Firstly, that women and men are physically different, and that the average woman has a fraction of the strength of the average man and cannot perform to the necessary standards for armed service. The feminist defense is often that women have to pass the same physical tests as men, but typically these standards are lowered for women. Secondly, this sheds light on the psychological difference between men and women. Women are inherently nurturing. In wartime and basically every culture throughout history, women have kept things going at home and raised children while men are away fighting. And that is because, in addition to male physical strength, men generally have more mental fortitude than women. They're able to better compartmentalize and subdue emotions in dire situations. I think this is another reason that women are underrepresented in dangerous jobs. Where are the feminists on that one? They don't want to be loggers or ice road truckers or other high fatality jobs. So it's obvious that feminists don't want real equality. They want their cake and to eat it too. They want men to treat them as though they possess identical characteristics. Until shit gets hard, then they want to be coddled and protected. And because men are trying to please women, especially millennials, this idea has caused serious social problems that are mostly negatively affecting women. We can see what's happened over the last 5 or 6 decades when women started to be treated like men. They were granted full entry into the workforce and now have equal pay, which, while giving financial independence to women, also became a tremendous burden. Feminists have become women's worst enemy. A woman said to me once, "Why would you ever want to be just a mom?" And then I've had women say, "Stay-at-home moms, that must be the life. What do they even do all day? Like, how do they spend their days?" Just like they're doing nothing. I have never really heard a man say these things. It's almost always by women. So women have created a social environment that demands to be viewed as a success on any level in society. That they spend their most formative years doing a job that ultimately doesn't matter. And women that choose to have children in their early 20s are largely viewed as white trash or dumb or incapable in the workforce. I've yet to see a single one of my friends or colleagues have kids in their 20s and be applauded for it. It's always, they're too young, they made a big mistake, they should have had fun while they still could. The corporate women that do have children usually stay in their careers and shamelessly have complete strangers raising their children and instilling who knows what values in them. But they're successful from a social perspective, despite shirking their most valuable and most sacred duty of motherhood, which is more important than any job they'll ever do. So what we're seeing is a group of women in their late 30s and 40s that are freaking out because they realize their careers are worthless. They've squandered their childbearing years because society didn't allow them to consider motherhood as a real option. So they suppressed their maternal instincts until it was too late, much like millennial men are taught to suppress their masculine traits. I think a combination of these factors have contributed to a dismally low birth rate, and women are unhappier than they have been in decades since housewives were glorified. Because of sexual liberation, men no longer have an incentive to marry. It used to be that the best way to get laid with consistent frequency was to get married. But I mean, now why would they really bother? They can have sex whenever they want without commitment. And if they get married, there's a high likelihood that it'll end in divorce, and over 70% of which are initiated by women. Also, custody and division of assets greatly favor women. Another reason I think the birth rate is low is that feminism has taught women that men are predatory and perverted, and that liking thin and fertile women is a product of their misogyny. As a result, feminism draws kind of an uglier crowd, and the hotter ones tend to let themselves go earlier than non-feminist chicks, because they think that it is sexist for men to want attractive women. Just look at all the fat acceptance campaigning going on. Because these chicks are fat, they're going to single-handedly redefine beauty standards to meet their needs. Men are the losers in this one too, but the burden to own this ugliness definitely falls on the women. Once again, thank you, feminism.